I want you to close your eyes and think back to the year of 2002, specifically in the month of November. Either recall what you lived through and remember about it, or what you may have heard. What sticks out to you? You may recall that George W. Bush was in his second year of presidency, or that the war on terror was being fought. Right now, I will be giving you insight of what happened in the month of November of 2002, starting off on a light note. On November 2nd, the beginning of the month, the 14th College Holy War game was played, and Boston College beat Notre Dame. And on that same day, the NHL legend Mark Messier played his 1,616th NHL game. This was incredible and historical. And the next day, on November 3rd, the Federation Cup for women's tennis, the tournament was played, and Slovakia was given their first title for the championship. A couple days later, on November 6th, the 36th Country Music Association Award was given to Alan Jackson and Martina McBride. And on November 11th, the Belgian tennis star Kim Clijsters beat Serena Williams from the U.S. during the WTA Tour Championship in Los Angeles. This was groundbreaking, as Serena Williams is one of the greatest tennis stars of all time and the greatest tennis star from the U.S. Throughout her career, she was largely undefeated, so this was incredible and speaks volumes to the Belgian tennis star's skill. A couple days later, on November 13th, Eminem's song Lose Yourself was the first rap song to win the Academy Award for Best Original Song. And on November 14th, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets was released, based off of J.K. Rowling's second Harry Potter book, which excited her massive fan base. On November 17th, the 54th NASCAR Sprint Cup was won by Tony Stewart. And on November 18th, the music album Up by Shania Twain was released, which went on later to become Billboard's Album of the Year for 2003. On November 20th, Die Another Day, the 20th James Bond film, was released, also exciting the massive fan base of those films. And on November 30th, Ina Garten's cooking show, The Barefoot Contessa, premiered. All of these examples of things that happened in November of 2002 give insight into the music, film, and sports culture of the early 2000s, specifically in November. A lot of stuff happened, but it wasn't all lighthearted. There was a lot of political tensions going on at the time, considering just the year prior, the 9/11 attacks struck fear into Americans and citizens all over the world, and the war on terror, as I mentioned, was being fought during this time. In fact, on November 4th, my birthday, Hidepu signed a pro-democracy letter in China and was arrested for promoting democracy in their largely communist country. And 2 days later, 12 people were killed in a train fire that was leaving France and going towards Italy. This was heartbreaking, and there was so much uncertainty during this time. In fact, on November 7th, Iran banned advertisements of all United States products, and on November 8th, the United States ordered Iraq's president and dictator, Saddam Hussein, to disarm or face serious consequences. This led to November 13th. On November 13th, Iraq agreed to disarm as the United Nations Security Council demanded. However, on the 16th, Saddam Hussein said that they had to disarm, they felt pressured to, due to the threat of the United Nations and how they showed their claws and teeth. So it was uncertain whether they were genuinely going to disarm, and on November 18th, the United Nations weapons inspectors arrived in Iraq. So there was so much tension between Iraq and the UN and the US because of the war on terror, and so it was a very uncertain time. A lot of things were happening, but it's important to remember how the US was able to grow from it. In fact, the US established the Department of Homeland Security in order to protect our nation from the many threats it faces, just later in the month. And the Department of Homeland Security is active even today. This month, with the coronavirus, they've been working to prevent the further spread of it at the borders. So it is very much active, very much in use, and still able to protect our country because of the changes the U.S. had to make in order to move forward as a stronger country. And some other things that happened was on November 13th, a massive oil spill caused damage to wildlife in the Atlantic Ocean. This was devastating and a huge issue and mess to clean up. And on November 14th, the United States House of Representatives voted not to create an independent commission to investigate the 9/11 attacks. On November 15th, Hu Jintao became the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China. Again, as I mentioned, the Communist Party was in full-fledged form at this time, and it still is today. And on November 21st, NATO invited Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, and Slovenia to join and become members of NATO. And lastly, I'd like to mention on November 22nd, in Nigeria, an attack caused more than 100 deaths of people in an attack aimed at the Miss World contestants. So this month didn't have a ton of great luck, but the United States was able to grow and was able to find ways to better strategize and protect their people because of all that it went through. I shared a lot about the music, film, art culture of this time, but also it was a very tense time. There's a lot to look back on and learn from to make sure that history never repeats itself.